What if I told you that there was a UFC fighter with only one functional eye and still destroyed his opponents? Well, that fighter was Michael Bisping, a legend who not only became the UFC middleweight champion, but also made history as the first British UFC champion. But how did he end up with just one functioning eye, and how did he still find success despite it? To find out, let's go back to 1979 in Nicosia, Cyprus, where Michael Bisping was born on a British military base. Shortly after, he was raised in Clitheroe, Lancashire, England, where he began training in martial arts at the young age of 8.
I mean, I started doing martial arts when I was 8 years old. Fighting was something that I liked, to be honest.
At the age of 15, years later, he participated as an amateur in Britain's first no-holds-barred competition, a precursor to modern MMA, called Knockdown Sport Budo. Michael eagerly pursued his passion for mixed martial arts, focusing on the striking aspect through kickboxing. He quickly found success, winning the British Light Heavyweight Kickboxing Championship multiple times. As his teenage years came to an end, Michael decided to step away from kickboxing due to financial challenges, taking on various regular jobs to support his wife.
My boss there, he used to say to me, he'd say, "Michael, you're a smart kid. Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life?"
Wow.
I was like, no. He said, "Well, have a think about what you want to do. Have a think and then come back to me and talk to me, because you don't want to do this for the rest of your life."
As mixed martial arts grew in popularity during the early 2000s, Michael made his professional MMA debut in 2004 against Steve Matthews, earning a technical knockout victory just 38 seconds into the fight. Over the course of 2004 and 2005, Michael competed in organizations like Cage Rage and Cage Warriors, dominating his opponents and claiming the light heavyweight title in both promotions. With an impressive undefeated record of 10-0, he was ready for his next challenge. In 2006, following 2 successful seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, the UFC introduced 2 English fighters to the 3rd season, including Michael Bisping. Under the guidance of coach Tito Ortiz, Michael defeated his first 3 opponents to secure a spot in the final. There, he claimed victory over Josh Haynes with a second-round TKO, becoming the 2nd light heavyweight winner of The Ultimate Fighter and earning a lucrative UFC contract. Months later, Michael made his UFC debut as an undefeated fighter, facing Eric Schaefer. He earned his first UFC victory with a TKO win against Schaefer, followed by consecutive wins over Elvis Sinosik and Matt Hamill. However, in 2007, Michael suffered his first UFC loss to Rashad Evans. After this setback, and with Dana White and others suggesting he was undersized for the light heavyweight division, Michael decided to move down to a lower weight class. Michael made a successful debut as a middleweight, achieving a TKO victory over Charles McCarthy. He followed this up with consecutive wins against Jason Day and Chris Leben. Later, after serving alongside Dan Henderson as a coach on the 9th season of The Ultimate Fighter, Michael faced Henderson at UFC 100.
You know, I'm a better fighter. I'm more experienced, and I don't care what he says. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change how I fight him. I'm still going to be trying to knock him out, still trying to beat him up and make his lips so fat he can't talk for a couple days.
From the opening bell, Henderson applied pressure, while Michael relied on his footwork to stay ahead. But in the 2nd round, Henderson delivered a devastating overhand right, resulting in Michael's first ever knockout loss. When Michael regained consciousness, he had no memory of what had happened to him.
You know, I hope he's fine, I hope he's okay.
I actually thought that I wasn't fighting for another 3 months. I could not compute, I could not understand what I was doing here, standing here in a pair of gloves with my shorts on. I'm like, whoa, 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 no, I'm not fighting tonight. I'm fighting in 3 months. And everyone was like, no, Michael, listen, you got knocked out. You fought tonight, you got knocked out. You gotta go to the hospital. You gotta get checked out. I refused to go to the hospital. I pretended that I was fine. And eventually, I went to the hospital. Got there, I said, I know what's going on. I lost the fight. It's all coming back to me now.
While Dan Henderson left the UFC following their fight, Michael bounced back stronger with a TKO victory over Dennis King. This win set the stage for a clash with Wanderlei Silva, which Michael lost by unanimous decision. But in 2010, Michael claimed victories over Dan Miller and Yoshihiro Akiyama. And in 2011, Michael continued his success with wins against Jorge Rivera and Jason Miller, leading to a clash with Chael Sonnen, one of the biggest names he would face in his career.
What you gonna do when you know who? How you gonna deal with the Man of Steel? And how will you react to Sonnen's attack?
Michael put up a strong fight, demonstrating excellent takedown defense and showcasing his impressive striking skills. But Chael's effective takedowns ultimately secured him the victory by unanimous decision.
He hit me so hard, Ariel.
Later, in 2012, Michael earned a unanimous decision victory over Brian Stann, setting the stage for a fight against Vitor Belfort that would change his career. So stay tuned. The bout began with both fighters adopting a cautious approach, but near the end of the first round, Vitor landed a perfectly executed head kick that stunned Michael. At the start of the second round, Vitor delivered another head kick, this time securing the finish.
That left high kick, and Bisping is opened up and in all sorts of trouble. That'll do it. Vitor Belfort has done it.
This head kick turned into Michael's worst nightmare, causing a retinal detachment in his right eye and resulting in the loss of vision in that eye.
Can you see well out of that eye?
I see a tiny bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't really see out of it, and the vision's very blurred.
Although the doctors advised Michael to retire from fighting, he made his return to the sport nearly a year later, facing Tim Kennedy but losing the bout via unanimous decision. He rebounded with a victory over Kung Lee, and by the end of 2014, he faced Luke Rockhold, a fighter who would later play a big role in Michael's career.
I'm gonna train so hard for this fight. I'm gonna train harder than I've ever trained, because I'm looking to go out there and embarrass this man. I like a lot of people. There's not a lot of people I don't like. Michael Bisping's at the top of that list. And so I'm gonna train so hard just so I can embarrass him that much.
The fight started off with Michael applying pressure through his striking. Luke defended effectively and countered with leg and head kicks. But early in the second round, Luke landed a perfect head kick followed by a guillotine choke, forcing Michael to submit. Michael bounced back stronger after this defeat, securing a victory over CB Dollaway at UFC 186. A few months later, he added another win to his record by defeating Thales Lights, which set Michael up for the biggest fight of his career against Anderson Silva.
This fight with Anderson is a big one. I'm going home back to England in front of my home crowd, my friends, my family, my home nation, and the biggest fight of my career.
Anderson's greatest middleweight of all time.
The highly anticipated clash between the two began with Michael taking an aggressive approach, landing several jabs and combinations. Anderson responded with a few clean counter strikes, but late in the second round, Michael landed a perfect combination that dropped Anderson. Anderson managed to recover, and in the final moments of the third round, Michael lost his mouthpiece during an exchange and signaled to referee Herb Dean for a pause. But no pause was granted, and Anderson seized the moment, landing a flying knee that sent Michael to the canvas just as the round ended. Silva celebrated, believing he had secured a knockout victory, but the referee clarified that the fight was not over, and Michael returned to his corner for the fourth round. Both fighters continued to exchange punches during the fourth and fifth rounds, but in the end, Michael secured the victory. All three judges scored the fight 48-47 in Michael's favor.
It felt so good. For me, that was my crowning moment, my biggest achievement. Every single minute of every day I'd spent in the gym, running, hitting pads, all the rest of it, all boiled down to that moment. And I refused to be beat that night. Unfortunately, it was just enough to get the job done.
After this victory, Michael finally earned himself a shot at the middleweight title, a goal he had missed earlier in his career after losing to Dan Henderson, Chael Sonnen, and Vitor Belfort. However, all three of them had a shot at the title while using synthetic testosterone at the time.
When testosterone replacement therapy became a thing, and all you had to do was go to your doctor and said, hey, I can't get a hard on or whatever, and all of a sudden they sign you off and you're on TRT.
No, I know. Even worse, you could take steroids first and then come off of it so your testosterone was low.
Oh, really?
And you go to a doctor and say, I have low testosterone.
Oh, of course, yeah, because it messes up your natural production of it.
This is what
Of course.
guys did. Guys took steroids and then went in afterwards and said they have low testosterone because they were on steroids.
With Michael nearing 40 years of age, having only one functional eye, and Luke Rockhold being one of the top fighters in the UFC at the time, few believed Michael stood a chance of winning this fight.
I'm going to close the distance, push him up against the fence, and just unleash what I've got. And I believe I can take him out.
Taking the fight on just 17 days' notice, Michael entered as a heavy underdog. As the main event of UFC 199 began, Michael sought openings and managed to land some punches. But Rockhold responded with powerful kicks, capitalizing on his reach advantage. However, late in the first round, Michael spotted an opening and delivered a perfect left hook that sent Rockhold to the canvas. As Rockhold tried to get back to his feet, Michael landed another devastating punch, securing the victory. Michael silenced the people that doubted him by claiming the belt, finally achieving his dream of becoming the UFC middleweight champion.
Becoming the world champion, knowing that everybody wrote me off, knowing that everyone talked shit about me, you know, other fighters, just you know, it was everywhere. I heard what people always said about me, do you know what I mean? So to win like that in style in the first round, yeah, felt amazing.
Michael made history as the first British fighter to win a UFC title. But becoming champion also meant defending the belt, and he faced that challenge for the first time against Dan Henderson. The two had already crossed paths before in the octagon, where Henderson delivered one of the sport's most legendary knockouts.
Dan Henderson just is an animal, and he had that ridiculous power. And he's just such an elite wrestler too.
UFC 204, Manchester. The rematch kicked off with Michael applying pressure on Henderson, showcasing his trademark footwork. But near the end of the first round, Henderson landed a perfect right hook that dropped Michael. Michael picked up the pace again, throwing combinations, but Henderson struck back with another powerful right hand, sending Bisping to the canvas again. Michael recovered and took control of the fight in the final 3 rounds, controlling the pace and landing precise punches that left Henderson's face bloodied. After 25 grueling minutes, Michael secured the victory by unanimous decision. Michael's second title defense was against Georges St-Pierre, who made his return to the UFC after a 4-year break. But despite the break, St-Pierre was on an impressive 12-fight winning streak and aimed to extend it further.
You're talking about being a fucking welterweight. You are a welterweight, okay? I'm a middleweight. I can't wait to fucking square up against you. Stand up. Stand up and look at the size of me and look at the size of you. Go back to fucking Canada.
A lot of BS. Saturday night is going to be a new middleweight world champion, GSP.
George, I'm going to punish you Saturday night, mate. I can't wait to do it. You made a big mistake.
The fight began with GSP effectively using his jab, landing some clean strikes, and securing a well-timed takedown. Michael responded with sharp counters and began landing accurate punches. But near the end of the 3rd round, GSP delivered a perfectly timed left hook that dropped Michael. GSP followed up with brutal elbows and punches on the ground. As Michael attempted to get back to his feet, GSP transitioned to his back and locked in a rear naked choke.
All respect to George. Well done. He beat me. I felt fantastic going in there tonight. I truly thought I was going to smoke him, and I didn't, you know, so well done.
21 days after his fight with GSP, Michael stepped up on short notice to take on Kelvin Gastelum and save the main event.
I just feel I'm a little bit better than Mike anywhere the fight goes. You know, I mean, he's got great boxing, but I feel my boxing is gonna be a little bit better and a little bit sharper. He's got good wrestling, but you know, I'm a wrestler. I wrestled for a long time. I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so I feel I have the advantage on the ground as well.
The fight began with Gastelum landing a few body kicks. Michael countered with his usual forward pressure, landing some clean strikes. But midway through the 1st round, Gastelum landed a powerful left hook that finished Michael.
Nice 1-2 from Gastelum. Bisping is out. Wow! Gastelum finishes Michael Bisping.
Michael Bisping,
one of the toughest guys to ever step foot in the cage, came out on his show and he said that he had regret for taking the Kelvin Gastelum fight. Now, I believe him. I didn't know why the hell he took that fight when he took that fight.
Not long after this defeat, Michael announced his retirement from MMA, primarily due to health concerns. During his final fight against Kelvin Gastelum, he experienced flashes of light in his healthy eye after being knocked out, raising fears of permanent blindness if he continued fighting. At 38 years old, with a professional record of 30 wins and 9 losses, Michael felt he had achieved everything he could in the sport.
That's one of the craziest stories ever, that you won the middleweight title with one eye.
Yeah.
And you won it by lying to the doctors.
Michael's legendary career was honored with his induction into the UFC Hall of Fame in March 2019, securing his place among the sport's all-time greats.
Michael Bisping was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that was cool and that was well-deserved. And a tip of the hat to Michael himself, but to all of the Bisping fans that came along the journey. And what a ride. What a ride he took you guys on.
Bisping's induction into the Hall of Fame wasn't just a recognition of his accomplishments. It was a celebration of his resilience, his ability to overcome challenges, and his influence on the sport. He broke barriers for British fighters, showing that with hard work and determination, even the toughest obstacles in the world of MMA can be conquered. Since retiring, Bisping has remained a prominent figure in the UFC and the broader MMA community. Through his commentary, podcasting, and motivational speaking, he continues to serve as an ambassador for the sport and a source of inspiration for both fighters and fans.